It's been almost 2 months since the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for Russian President Vladimir Putin and the official in charge of Moscow's campaign of stealing children from Ukraine. Kyiv is demanding more international support to pursue Russian leadership. Nick Schifrin spoke with the top Biden administration official who's responsible for global criminal justice about her efforts, the roadblocks within the American government, and the chances of holding Putin and his high command accountable.
In this war, death comes at night, as an apartment complex slept last month. The death comes en masse as Russia stole dignity from the dead and reduced cities to rubble. And the killers are also thieves. Kidnapped Ukrainian children are paraded in Moscow, forced to hug their abductors.
This is a manifest violation of the UN Charter that has led to systemic war crimes, crimes against humanity across all areas where Russia's troops are deployed.
Beth Van Schok is the U.S. ambassador at large for global criminal justice.
We need to send a strong, concerted, unified international message that one cannot simply invade a sovereign neighbor in an effort to subjugate that neighbor and wipe them off the face of the planet.
The International Criminal Court has issued 2 warrants of arrest.
The most prominent mechanism of justice is in The Hague at the ICC, which in March issued arrest warrants for war crimes allegedly committed by Russian President Vladimir Putin and his so-called Commissioner for Children's Rights.
Systematically practiced torture and rape.
And Ukraine's prosecutor general is leading the country's own pursuit of close to 80,000 cases of war crimes committed by Russian soldiers in Ukraine.
Ladies and gentlemen.
But Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky wants Russia's leadership to be punished for its initial decision to wage war.
Only one institution is capable of responding to the original crime, the crime of aggression: a tribunal.
The crime of aggression was created in the Nuremberg and Tokyo military tribunals after World War II for Nazi and Japanese leaders and hasn't been prosecuted by an international court since. The ICC cannot pursue an aggression charge against Russian leadership because Russia is not an ICC member. So today, Ukraine demands a special tribunal that could pursue Putin, authorized by the UN General Assembly.
Not some compromise that will allow politicians to say that the case is allegedly done, but a true, we need true, full-fledged tribunal, true and full justice.
That's direct criticism of a U.S. and Western European proposal, a Ukrainian court supported by international staff, money, and intelligence with no UN authorization.
The concern is that we don't have access to the Security Council here. Of course, Russia will predictably exercise its veto on any effort to create a standalone tribunal. And in the past, tribunals have generally been established by the Security Council. And if there are questions about whether the UN Charter empowers the General Assembly to do that.
Wouldn't the court that you're proposing operate under Ukrainian law and therefore be stuck with the rule that a national court cannot go after the head of a state of another country?
The vision is a court that is deeply rooted in Ukrainian national system. They will be starting to build dossiers against all of those individuals in a leadership capacity who are in a position to design, execute the crimes of aggression committed within Ukraine. And this tribunal could then accept those indictments when the time was ripe to confirm those charges.
Does that suggest that regardless of the format, you don't see any accountability for Putin himself until he's out of power?
Under any scenario, we're going to have custody of the accused of Putin in order to move forward. And that's exceedingly unlikely until there is some sort of a political transformation within Russia.
The U.S. also has a practical problem. Many countries in the global south wouldn't vote to establish a tribunal, in part because they accuse the U.S. of double standards for refusing to submit to ICC investigations over the American wars in Iraq and Afghanistan.
With Ukraine really interested, for obvious reasons, to have the international community backing this effort, backing this initiative wholeheartedly, to come out of the General Assembly resolution with a weaker vote than 90 or 80 states in train would be problematic. I think that would really undercut the message of legitimacy.
The Department of Justice has been great. The Department of Defense has been terrible.
There's another way for the U.S. to pursue justice: help the ICC. Late last year, Senate Judiciary Committee leaders Ranking Member Republican Lindsey Graham and Chair Democrat Dick Durbin helped lead an effort to change the law to allow the U.S., which isn't an ICC member, to provide the ICC with intelligence, funding, and staffing for its Ukraine investigations.
Why hasn't the administration done that?
We are still exploring how we can utilize these new authorities from Congress. It's still a matter of working through some of the details through the interagency process.
Multiple U.S. officials tell PBS NewsHour the Defense Department rejects helping the ICC hold Russian soldiers accountable out of fear the ICC could one day prosecute U.S. soldiers. The officials say the intelligence community has dropped its own previous concerns. Last week, after a meeting with ICC Prosecutor General Karim Khan, Durbin accused the administration of, quote, withholding evidence from the ICC.
Why is your department not sharing evidence that we have gathered to help that effort?
I do have concerns about reciprocity going forward. I remain concerned about the protection of U.S. military personnel.
I've got to ask for more, General. I respect you, and I voted for you, and I'd do it again, but I've got to ask for more. If the law says cooperate and you refuse, what conclusion am I supposed to draw?
We support the goal of holding Russia accountable.
I have to ask you to prove it, and by doing so, you've drawn a personal opposite conclusion, and I think it is, frankly, hurting the efforts to hold Putin accountable.
And last month, Graham raked Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco over the coals for not complying with the new law.
I'm going to ask you again, is the Department of Defense the holdup?
Senator, I know the Department of Defense has had longstanding concerns about our engagement.
I don't care what their concerns are. They can share them with me. We got a law on the books. Do you feel like you need to follow the law when you're told to do it?
Yes, Senator.
Okay. So we'll take this up with the Department of Defense.
Should the Department of Defense be worried about future prosecutions if it drops its resistance?
I think there is virtually no equivalency or comparison to what Russia has done here to anything that might involve U.S. personnel or service members. We have a full-scale war of aggression being committed through the systematic and widespread commission of war crimes, crimes against humanity. There's no comparison here. And so I do not see a concern that this would set any sort of a precedent that might redound badly to the United States.
So the debate over ICC assistance and a special tribunal continues as Ukraine demands accountability and justice for Russia's ongoing crimes. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Nick Schifrin.